Despite how the season ended, there seems to be a lot of positivity surrounding the St. Louis Blues. And while I understand the positivity, I also feel like there needs to be more accountability held because right now I'm in a place of thinking to myself, this team should have made the playoffs. And while it's a step in the right direction, it still just wasn't enough. I'm going to talk more about this coming up here on Locked on Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to Locked On Blues. I am your host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our St. Louis Blues here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So I'm going to talk about the amount of positive things that I have seen come out of players' mouths, Doug Armstrong, Coach Bannister, and more. And while I feel like there needs to be a little bit more accountability held, coaching changes will happen. And I have a feeling that, well, maybe Doug Armstrong already knows what he wants to do, but is keeping it a little bit hush-hush. And of course, my favorite Friday segment, Are We Feeling Blue? A lot to dive into on today's episode of Locked On Blues. But I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go, nail free on the App Store or Google Play. I hope everybody is doing good today on this Friday. Honestly, I'm as good as can be with my team not being in the playoffs. No hockey tonight. The NHL has an off day before the playoffs begin. Yeah, sure, it was the last game of regular season hockey. It is now the off season for the St. Louis Blues, which means that, well, a lot is going to change from now until the beginning of the season, or I hope. I hope a lot changes. To give you a timeline, the draft is June 28th. So that is approaching shortly. And beginning next week, I'll begin doing player profiles of different prospects that I like for all the different rounds. So, of course, our first rounders, but I'm going to also do the other rounds and the other picks that we have because those guys can be just as important sometimes. So, a lot to dive into on that aspect. What I want to talk about, though, is something that I've been seeing from players, from coach, from Doug, is all this positivity. Braden Shen said, "We're closer than what people think. There are a lot of good pieces in this locker room that can get us to where we want to be, and a lot faster than people think." While I do like that quote, I think that is a pretty good quote. Listen, the Blues did make a step from last year, but this is what bothers me. The Blues finished this season with 11 more points. They had 92 this season, 81 last season, which is the fifth most improved point total in the league. I hate to be negative because at first when I saw that, I was thinking to myself, hey, this is a positive. This is a really good thing for the St. Louis Blues. But after a day, I was actually thinking to myself, while the Blues were the fifth most improved team in point total, why does it matter? They're not in the playoffs. The same problems are going to be dealt with that we had to deal with last season, but we didn't. And to be fair, I was watching a documentary. I mentioned this last night. I know I'm wearing the same sweatshirt, different day. Uh, I was watching a documentary on our cup run. And one thing that stood out to me, and I always have to remind myself, was on January 3rd, the St. Louis Blues were the worst team in the Western Conference. Everybody counted the Blues out. Everybody said, this team took a major downfall with all the talent they have. They're just not good enough. And nobody counted the Blues in. The Blues then went, it was an 11-game win streak. They went on something crazy, and they began to win, get the points up. The reason why I think this frustrates me, it's because the Blues were historically having one of their worst seasons, the 2018-2019 season when they won the Cup. So a season like this, where the problems you had last season, it just wasn't addressed in the offseason. You know what you had to fix, and you didn't. I just find it a little funny, not like haha funny, but a little bit like, oh, funny, that this is being talked about in a sense of we should be happy about this improvement, when in reality, do I think much was improved? I think that we saw Biddington look a lot better this season, so that was good. We saw Joel Hofer look good. We saw, with Jake Neighbors, had a great season. Robert Thomas, as always. Colton Pareka looked better. We saw players look better. But did much change? Did the outcome of the season change? The Blues still missed the playoffs when they had all the opportunity in the world to get to the playoffs. I mean, if you really think about it, and you think about how the season went, and you think about the games that they lost, you can understand the frustration when you see a quote like that and it's like, okay, well, fifth most improved point total doesn't get you anything. It doesn't get you draft picks. It doesn't get you a playoff opportunity. I mean, it's just a statistic. And this fan base has had to deal with a team, to be fair, that kind of fell apart in a sense, right? Losing Berube. And besides Berube, I mean, we thought things would be better this season. We did. We thought the playoffs. And that's what everyone would always say. They're going to be in the playoffs, playoffs. That didn't happen. You have a team, and I hate to say this about this team, but you have a team like the Vegas Golden Knights, new team to this league that has come in and is able to make all the right moves. And I think it's because of their higher ups. Now, obviously not all the right moves. I know what they did to Marc-Andre Fleury and things like that. But they've been a pretty good team when it comes to, moving pieces around and making good decisions from the higher ups. It gets me thinking about the Blues. What have our higher ups done? Well, they got Kevin Hayes this summer. Okay, well, how did that help us? And I want you to think about this. They say that, and Doug Armstrong said it too. This isn't like a one-step process. More things going to be done. He was saying, this is the first year of many to getting, the Blues onto track. Just talking in circles, honestly. And when you think about that, I understand that, the captain, Braden Shen, is going to be hopeful because he wants to win. That's a player's mentality. And I'm not saying that these higher ups don't want the Blues to be successful by any means, but what are they going to do about it? Are they going to, really utilize this free agency? I've been saying this even last year on Locked On Blues, that free agency in the NHL this year is going to be absolutely insane. And I would love to do an episode next week going over all the possible players that will be available during free agency that I think would fit well with, the Blues. But no, I do not want players that are older in their career. And I think there's a difference between having an experienced player versus a player that you just kind of have to say, you know what? They had a great run in the NHL, but we do not need you. And it's not a diss on these players that are older, but at the end of the day, this is supposed to be a younger team. And I'm not trying to hate on Kevin Hayes. That's not the point of today's episode, but he is an older player. And I'm genuinely curious about what the Blues thought they could have realistically done with him, considering the fact that he might only have a couple years left in his career, right? You want consistency because you don't want to do what we did. And I'm very thankful that we won the Stanley Cup. It was our first cup in history. So, obviously, I'm happy about that. But you don't want to, oh my goodness, and think about it. Well, we came in the league in 67. Yeah, a long time coming. Which is crazy, but we want to be a dynasty team. And, the Boston Bruins, I joke about it. We beat them in the cup, tough series, very tough series. We beat the Dallas Stars, tough series. They're in the playoffs. The Bruins are in the playoffs again. The Jets. Yeah, we beat the Jets. They're in the playoffs. The Sharks are not. So but they beat us 3 times this season. But you think about the teams that we competed against and notice how they're still all very competitive teams. And, well, we're not because we're not in the playoffs. And There's some people that will make the argument saying, success doesn't mean playoffs. Well, it does in the National Hockey League. So let's put that one to rest. I want to tell you about my friends over at Policygenius. Policygenius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It saves you time and money so you can provide your family with financial safety net starting today. With Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million coverage. Some options offer same day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policygenius helps you compare options from top companies and top team of licensed experts it has on hand to help you through it. Talk to team award-winning agents who will walk you through a process step by step, and it's so easy to navigate. So check life insurance off your to-do list of no time with Policygenius. Head to policygenius.com/lockedonnhl or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/lockedonnhl. So obviously one thing that needs to be addressed is the coaching change. I truly believe that Doug Armstrong knows what he's going to do. I know that he said that Coach Bannister was in his small list of circle of people that he would consider. If you want my personal opinion, while I understand that he might say that, and I understand that it might be a thing out of respect, since Bannister was in the room, you know what I'm saying? I get it. I just, do words need to be said? I just feel like if he were to be the head coach, Doug Armstrong would have just made him the head coach and took away the title interim. But again, that could just be me. Doug might just be really weird with these things, but I feel like they already know who they're going to have as the coach. Doug said that he wanted to do this before the draft. The draft, as I said, is that June 28th. So approaching kind of quickly. So I think that pretty soon, and then he also said June 1st. Honestly, I think it's going to be done sooner than that. I think that he's going to make the announcement. Maybe it's the coach that's in the playoffs right now, but I don't see any of those coaches, honestly, getting fired by any means. So I don't know who he's thinking. Maybe, and I hate to say maybe it's an assistant because I don't want that to be the case. I want this to be an experienced NHL coach. I want this to be a coach with experience of how to truly develop these younger players and work on that power play, work on the penalty kill. There is a lot that needs to be done. Do I think that Bannister could still be involved with the Blues? Absolutely. Make him an assistant coach. He definitely deserved it and earned it. Most importantly, earned it because he could have done a lot worse with this team. And he did a good job. He said the right things. Job didn't get done, obviously, but you can't put all of the blame on Drew Bannister. And I feel like it's really easy to blame coaches sometimes. And I always say this, whenever there is a problem with a team, it can be in any sport. It could be baseball with our Cardinals. Who is the first one to always get blamed? It's the managers. It's always the coaches, the managers. It's never, the GM. And I guess it could be the GM. I mean, I've always kind of blamed Doug Armstrong, but not necessarily the case. It's one of those things where you truly need to look at the future of the St. Louis Blues and think, is Drew Bannister going to change this team? Is this team going in the right direction being coached underneath Drew Bannister? And if you have to doubt it for a second, then maybe, just maybe, there's a better option out there. And again, I am thankful for what he has done to this team. It seemed like when he came in December, he really motivated them. I think his record was 30-19 something. He did a good job for what it was, right? Not perfect. Some decisions with the lineup that I always felt were a little questionable. But overall, I think he did a good job for what it was. He gave the younger guys a chance. And now some of them are back in Springfield. And I think that them getting the experience is super important. But you have to remember that Bannister was the head coach of the T-Birds. Berube gets fired and they bring him up, and he's dealing with a team that was kind of a train wreck. So it's a little bit ironic in a way. because the year we won the cup, we had Mike Yeo in the beginning of the season, and Yeo got to go. That was what I was always saying. And they bring in Craig Berube, and the team went on this magical run. And I'm sure there were some of you, because I know I felt this way, that were thinking, do you think the Blues could go on a run now? Because it seemed a little bit familiar, right? And that did not happen. I'm telling you, that season was an absolute miracle. And you can tell me, well, they had talent, and while that's true, sometimes, at least for me in these past couple of seasons, I need to remind myself that this is not that 2018, 2019 team. Is mostly 2019, because let's face it, they sucked in 2018. But I have to remind myself that this team is not what that team was. And it's very rare that you see a team struggle in the beginning / middle part of the season and then completely flourish towards the end of the season. What we experienced was kind of like false hope, because we were really under the impression that was going to be one of the Blues' worst season, and then we walk away with Stanley Cup. So that is not reality, but reality right now is a step in the right direction, which is why I am happy with Captain Braden Shen saying that we're going to move forward. We cannot keep on looking back. I mean, on this podcast, we're going to look back a little bit, but the team needs to continue on the right direction. I'm going to tell you about my friends over at Monopoly Go. We've all been there. You either play as a fan, it's halftime, and the scoreboard is just not looking good, and you're feeling low, not sure if you or your team can pull out a win. That's when you dig deep, lift your heads up, and say to yourself, time to get back in the game, pull off some bank heists, and take as much of my friends' money as I can. That's right. Smash It mobile game, Monopoly Go, lets you compete with your friends and lets you get the most riches and become the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone anytime, with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. There's so much to do. You can play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards, make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball, charge other players rent for iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests in tournaments to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there, put on your game face, and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. It's my favorite segment, which you know. Are you feeling blue? Well, yes and no. I am feeling so excited that it's now the off season, so I don't have to ever deal with losing to the Sharks 3 times in one season. I felt like this season just was so stressful, especially towards the end when we had a 0.3% chance of making the playoffs, and I had that little bit of hope. I don't know why I was holding on to hope. I don't. I know why. It's because I love the Blues and I didn't want the season to end, but I was stressed out every single night, not just watching Blues hockey, but it was like Kings hockey, it was Vegas hockey. Like, I was watching so many other teams hoping for their downfalls, and yet we lost some games that were very winnable games. So a part of me just feels a little bit relieved that this dumpster fire is over, but there was a lot of positives of the season, which is why I'm feeling good, because I know there's a lot of players that are going to be big assets going forward to this team. You have players like Jake Neighbors, or Robert Thomas, a Colton Parayko, who I really don't want them to trade because I like Parayko a lot. I know they want to extend Pavel Buchnevich, so there is a lot of positives. I just feel like, in a sense, I'm so ready for moving forward, and I don't think next season it's going to be what we had this season. I think there's going to be more stability from the beginning. I think anytime you get rid of a coach at any point in the season, it will throw off a team. They have the whole entire offseason, if whoever they hire, to get acquainted with the team, with the system, with St. Louis. So that excites me. It excites me that they're going to have good draft picks. I mean, I know they're going to be probably 16th overall, but the kids in the draft are good, and they're going to develop some more guys. Dvorsky, of course, I'm excited about him. I have to probably get his jersey, but or sweater. I know I'm like not hockey. No, I know. but there is a lot to be excited about. So, yes, I'm feeling blue that this season is over, but I am feeling cautiously optimistic about the future. And I want to stress that optimistic. It's an interesting word because it doesn't mean excited, it doesn't mean dreading, it means hope. And I think right now that's what we all need being Blues fans is a little bit of hope, a little bit of the what ifs again. I don't want to ever come into a season where I feel like I'm going to watch this team just go through the motions and not make it to the playoffs. I want to have a season where I see major improvement, where I see more just power on the ice, more forechecking, a better power play, a better penalty kill, just better defense, better offense. Like there is so much more except goalies. I am so happy with Bennington and Hofer that I'm not going to even comment on that because I mean Bennington. There was a statistic. Let me go pull it up because I don't want to misquote myself. Well, it was actually not my statistics. So I'm going to give credit, obviously. It was Blues Moose, so STL Blues Moose on Twitter. And he was fifth in the NHL for the season with, games played, his record, get goals saved. Like he seriously had a great season. So I am really proud of Jordan Binnington. And I want to make that known. And I want to make that clear that the Blues' problems have nothing to do with their goalies. Hofer and Bennington, it's all good in my eyes. And that is something that is something I wanted to make clear. So, yes, I am very proud of those guys. It's going to be an interesting offseason. So, I expect a lot of good things. But as I said, I'm cautiously optimistic about the future. And I love this team so much. And I think that it's going to be good next season. But this is going to be one ride of an off season. So let's enjoy this together, St. Louis. And for those asking, yes, I will be here next season on Locked On Blues. The podcast is going to run every Monday through Friday during the summertime. So no need to worry. Even though the season's coming to an end, this podcast is every single day. That's why you're my everydayers. All right. I will see you very soon next Monday here on Locked On Blues.